My magazine, Disengage, generally follows generic conventions of normal magazines, but every now and again does change a little and, develop some of my own ideas. Looking at my magazine front cover here, first of all, if we have a look at the masthead, which reads Disengage with a metal hardcore effect on it, if we look at it as a whole, the general generic convention of magazines is that the masthead is the most significant micro-element on the page, and I think that was very successful, and I managed to do that because Disengage to me stands out the most there. For example, if we look at Kerrang's front cover, again, Kerrang! The masthead Kerrang stands out the most, therefore that's a generic convention I have stuck to. Other generic conventions, such as the banners, which are in this case there, and at the top there, are also another generic convention I followed. A very popular generic convention of music magazines. They're there to sort of give more information to the audience, catch the audience out so the audience can see more information that's in the magazine. For example, if we look at the Kerrang! Banners at the bottom, again I followed the generic conventions of this magazine front cover rather well, and very similar to other generic conventions of other magazine front covers. Other generic conventions such as the barcode at the bottom of the page, barcode with the price and issue number at the bottom. The size, if we look at the Kerrang! One as a comparison, slightly differently done, this generic convention on this magazine. We've got a barcode at the top, the issue number and date, price, etc. on the bottom. However, it's still got the same generic convention, just slight mediation done to mine. If we refer back to my magazine again, we've got the cover lines, which stand out rather well there. Cover lines, very, very strong generic convention of music magazines. They're basically essential to the generic conventions to actually recognising that it is a magazine front cover. Pull back to this Kerrang! Front cover. We have got these cover lines here. Again, mine have been mediated differently. Mine are different, but it's still the same generic convention, still getting the message out to the audience via these generic conventions. The medium close-up image, which is very typical on magazine front covers. It's different paralinguistic features of the model, different iconography, different props, but again, referring back to this one, it is still the same. We've still got a medium close-up, and we're still sort of, connoting the sort of music theme. We've also got extra images on the front cover. For example, I've got one of Yumi at 6 playing, and also one of a guitarist from Yumi at 6 playing there. These, it's all about graphological features, pulling the audience's attention in there. And if we refer back to the Kerrang! Front cover, we can see that they've done the same. They've got these generic conventions of other photography of other bands. For the same purpose, all about generic conventions and the same purpose, getting it out there to the audience. I've got sort of, extra information. There's some bubbles on there, sort of stamps. They are there in the sort of star shape, as you can see there. I can zoom in also on that. Other generic conventions that I've used are things like, so this extra element actually is going against most generic conventions. If you look at most common music magazines, they will not have elements such as, the extra sort of iconography there, with the chain and the padlock. They will not have them because it makes the magazine look too fussy. However, I believe such elements as these actually, add some originality to the magazine, add some difference to the magazine, make the magazine stand out from others, and also what they actually connote in my magazine, which is the rebelliousness, sort of a rock theme, you know, it goes with the magazine. If we look at this front cover from Kerrang, you'll see it's just the image and then the plain background. I think it did successfully work on my magazine. There has been feedback to suggest that maybe it didn't work so well, but generally positive feedback on actually using this, which therefore suggests that although it is not a generic convention of magazines, it actually successfully worked. However, if I did produce another music magazine, maybe I wouldn't add such elements on and keep it a little bit plainer. But for one that I made, I'm very happy, positive that actually did work. Now if we move down to my contents page, generic conventions of a contents page, first obvious one telling you it's a contents page. So let's have a look at this contents page. So it's telling us that is a contents page, much like what I have done. Other generic conventions are, having some images on there. I mean, a very popular thing that Kerrang do, which I actually modelled on my magazine, is having half, an image on the top, and half the actual content. So if we go back to a Kerrang contents again, you can see that they've done the same. They've got half an image, half actual contents. Another generic convention of contents pages is to have, it's not on every magazine, but it is, a very popular generic convention, to have an article from the editor. So this is my say in the magazine. And if we also go back to the Kerrang magazine, you'll also see that they have also got an editor's bit on their magazine too, which says that I'm following generic conventions of normal magazines. Obviously the sort of page numbers and actually, letting you know script of actually what is in it. If we flip back to the Kerrang one again, you'll see that they've done the same down here. Slightly different, mine has been mediated differently again, but they still use these generic conventions, much like what I have done. And also very, very popular generic convention, you'll find it on every magazine going. Page number right at the bottom, which is obviously on most magazines as a generic convention. For now, move down to the actual dub page spread. You'll see this is the front cover of my dub page spread, the second page of my dub page spread, and actually the third page of my double page spread. If we do a bit of a comparison to generic conventions of other dub page spread, for example this one, we've got images on there of the people we're talking about. We've got pull quotes. Although mine is mediated very differently, we've still got them on there. So the generic conventions of pull quotes, generic conventions of the questions, generic conventions of sort of a medium close-ups, maybe sort of crowd shot, long shots, all generic conventions of the double page spreads. And also, totally obvious generic convention of page spread, 2 pages. Or in some double page spreads, for example mine, we've got more than 2 pages. So it's also a number of pages being a generic convention. I have gone against generic conventions in my double page spread. For example, it's not very common that on the first page you've just got one image of the person, and then we move on to the actual story, author. I've been very creative with mine. It's got the basic generic conventions it needs, but I've mediated them a lot to make it more interesting.
Facebook feedback was very important to me in my project. The feedback I received helped me to find out whether the generic conventions I used worked, and whether me challenging forms and conventions of real media products worked or not. The feedback I received helped me a lot, and I deleted some elements that I got negative feedback on. It also made me be confident with some of the elements I've got, and allow me to keep them. The feedback I received was on Facebook, and also by some volunteers giving me feedback actually doing a video. So I got quite a lot of qualitative and quantitative data, which helped me a lot in my